gotta make another couple hundred grand. All right, man, we coming back. The Entreprenudist Podcast. Lewis and a couple of hands. Back with one of our originals. The fourth quarter, I'm playing Vince. Gotta make another couple hundred Perri. Watch the snow, I can do it. He was on the Entreprenudist Podcast when we was in our single digits. When we made it to our double digits. And now he's back. This is the Entreprenudist Podcast, the place to hear real entrepreneurs and business owners bear it all. I am your host, Randolph Love 𝘃𝗶𝗿𝗁. We do have a special guest in the building, like I said. This episode is brought to you by ShieldWolf Strongholds, a wealth protection company. If you need business exit planning, life insurance with the right person, call ShieldWolf Strongholds or reach out at ShieldWolfStrong.com. Vince Perri, please tell people, who are you and what do you do?
Thank you for having me on, Randolph. I always appreciate an opportunity to have a chance to speak with the love doctor himself.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
My name is Vince Perri. 16 years I've been a public adjuster, and I am just recently a full-time business broker, deal maker, business investor, really looking for successful entrepreneurs looking to either sell their business, potentially invest in another business. We're looking at some pretty big deals in the front of business selling and just business brokering in general. And also, I've been an entrepreneur for so long. I'd like to share a lot of the stuff that I've learned over the years. So amongst the actual brokering of the business deal for those that are looking to sell or looking to buy, I'm on a mission as well to help entrepreneurs, help business owner really scale to sell. Because what I always say is that a business that you can sell is a great business to own.
Absolutely. And yeah, a lot of people, they get into it. They say, when should you start thinking about when you're going to exit your business? And the correct answer is before you start, right? But a lot of people, don't have that luxury, or they had that luxury, but they didn't have that knowledge. It sounds like if somebody was looking to get into business or get out of business, they call a broker.
If they're ready to sell, you definitely have to call a broker. The first thing that we do is we basically take your financials, profit and loss, and your tax returns, and we'll put a valuation on the business. And then we could basically let you know, based on the market and based on your financials, this is how much you can sell your business for. You'll be surprised at how often a seller thinks that their business is actually worth a lot more than they think. But it's the little things, it's the financials, but then it's also, are your systems and processes in place? Is there a subscription model in your business? And is there a marketing strategy? Is there a sales team? This is why I believe it's so important that the second that you do open your business, or at least within the first year or two, when you start actually generating some revenue and you're looking to actually bring on someone else, because we all know we start just basically one person shows and we're doing everything ourselves. As soon as you start to do that, you really need to think about 5-10 years in advance to see if it's actually going to be worth it for someone to potentially buy that business. And it's not just the dollar amount based on the financials. It's also those other things as well that I mentioned.
Okay. Do you not have a preference of who you work with? Do you prefer to work with the buyer or the seller more, or it doesn't matter to you?
We usually work with the seller for the most part. That's kind of what we specialize in.
Okay. All right. So for a buyer, a seller that was looking to link up with a Vince Perri, because for you, just like you said, you're relatively new to the broker space, but you've been managing and marketing, running a multi-state business for years now. How has that translated to how you help sellers?
Oh, man. I mean, I'm a coach at heart. You know that, Randolph. Like, since we first met, you came to me for some advice, some coaching, some mentorship, and I can't get away from that.
The great Vince Perri. A day. Yeah.
I was a coach, tennis coach for 15 years, public adjuster for 10, and then I got into the coaching of other public adjusters. And because of my experience in scaling businesses, in implementing systems and processes, in implementing a legitimate marketing strategy, hiring salespeople, like the whole nine. I also want to share that information because I'm sure you run into it all the time. Man, these entrepreneurs and some of these small business, I would almost go so far to say 8 or 9 out of 10 businesses are just not running the way it should, and they're missing out on so many potential dollars where if they would just sit back and actually organize how their business functions, look at it from a 30,000 foot view. What's the overall, I like to start with the 30,000 foot view of what's the overall process of your system, of your business. It shouldn't be any more than like 3 to 8 steps, but then you dive into each of those steps, and that's when all your systems and processes come together. So I don't think I'm answering the question. I believe the question is, what am I looking for in a seller?
No, what should the seller, and what you're telling me is correct, because I was saying, what should a seller be looking for in a broker? And what you're describing is somebody that's going to let them know, say, hey, as soon as I meet you, I'm going to ask you the normal stuff. Do you have systems? What's your business model? How many steps are in your model? And it sounds like if somebody's looking for a broker and they cannot answer those simple questions of as all right, just somebody walking in off the street, what are they looking for when they buy a company? If your broker can't answer those questions for you in the first meeting, it seems like maybe they might not know what they're talking about.
To simplify things, I would to answer that question and to make it as simple as possible without diving into all the systems and processes, though, I will tell you it's cash. It's your gross profit margin, though. One thing I've learned over the last few years, I used to always look at two things. I would always go, how much revenue am I making? Which you and I know doesn't mean anything if you're spending all of the money that you're making. So I would look at the gross revenue, and then of course I'd look at the net profit. Those are always the two numbers that I looked at. But then I learned a few years ago, luckily hiring a business coach and just helping me understand the financials, I really now focus, especially in a lot of these service industries, I'm looking at the gross profit margin now. So I want to look at the COGS, at the cost of goods sold. I really want to see how much is it that your actual service is costing? How much is it that your actual product is costing? Because those numbers you can adjust, but those are the numbers. You have to try to find a way to adjust that, because then the operation side of it, you could sort of mix and play with those a little bit and see what you can do to try to ultimately save as much money as you can. But your gross profit margin, I've come to realize, is probably the most important number. Is how much is it each particular service that you do for a particular household, or how much does each product that you sell to a customer, how much is that actually costing you? And if you can be, and I've been doing a lot of research on this lately, just reading up about a lot of it. I mean, you really honestly, you want to be at around the 50 to even 80% margin on that to give you some wiggle room on who to hire, what CRM or whatever it is that you want to implement on the overall operational expense side. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, perfect sense. What you're saying is, because what a lot of people do, which of course, it seems like that's the way we were taught. Once we became self-employed, all right, the name of the game is to not look wealthy on paper, right? So we make a lot of money, but then everything is essentially tied into our expenses, not just the COGS, the cost of goods sold, but also maybe grayish some of our personal expenses are tied in. And when it comes to trying to sell your company and they're looking at that gross profit margin and they're trying to figure out how much you're really making, if you're not working with a business broker that can say, hey, I understand that we do a lot of creative accounting, but if you want to sell your company, you need to make sure that what the expenses that we are including are actually what it costs for these goods, actually what it costs for these services, so you can get the highest return when you put it on the market to sell.
Right. So, we take a look at all that stuff. So even if Randolph wants to sell his business tomorrow and somebody submits an LOI, which is basically they're submitting an offer,
I'm about 3 years out, Vince. I'm going to give you a call. I got a 3-year plan.
I love it. I love it. I love it. We can start looking at that now to make sure that your books are straightened out. And I work for Patrick Murtha Mergers out here in Tampa, Florida, and they're also accountants and they're also bookkeepers. So it's sweet because we could take you literally from where you are now, make sure it's just super tight, super clean for when you're actually ready, and we could even like give you the okay, now you're ready. But I always recommend that if you do have a dollar amount, think about that number now. Write it down on a piece of paper or save it somewhere in your notes. What's the number? Is it 1 million? Is it 5, 10, 50 million? And then put it away. And then when you get to that number, you have to go back and tell yourself this was the number. Because what happens is if you get to a $50 million valuation, then what do you start thinking? Well, man, it is 50 million now. I've got everything working like a fine-tuned machine. I can get 100 in another 2 years, or I can get 200 in 3 years, which is true, but you want to have that number put in mind now, and you want to stick with that decision when the time comes, because man, what you can do with the money that you cash out with is great. But what I wanted to say was that you have to make sure that all your books are tight, everything's ready to go. And that's what we do. We take a look at the books, we take a look at the valuation, and we clean everything up. And all those expenses that you talk about that are business expenses, we have to be made aware of that. Because if we're not aware of that from the beginning, and we're going to look at that stuff is taken out, dude. That stuff, when due diligence comes, the buyer puts the offer, we sign off on the offer. Now the real work begins, because they're going to hire an accountant and they're going to dig deep into your books. And if they see a bunch of numbers that are a bunch of dinners and a car that you seldomly use for business, but it's really your personal car and all these things, all those are good and well for taxes. But when it comes to selling your business, the buyer of the business is going to take that stuff out of your P&L, and it's not going to be included because the buyer already knows, I'm not getting that car. That's his car. I'm not going out on those dinners. He's the one that's going out on those dinners. And all that stuff actually gets recalculated in the actual price. So, it's just something that we do to make sure it's all lined up so that we have the least amount of due diligence and the least amount of time from the time somebody's really interested and puts in an offer.
Oh, yeah. And by the way, when he said business expenses, he did air quotes for the people that's listening, because, yeah, that due diligence phase isn't a joke, because so potential buyers are sellers. So let's say somebody was looking to buy your company, right? And a person that wants to buy a company, their preference is the business is operating on its own without you. So what some potential buyers might do is they might set a meeting and then reschedule at the last minute to see if that seller is able to make those reschedulings. Now, I don't agree with those type of tactics, right? But people do that. And what they want to see is, if we reschedule at the last minute, are you going to come up and say, oh, no, I can't do that. I have to work in my business, even though you said the business is running by itself, because it's very important. And I'm sure Vince can attest to this. If you have just because your business needs you to operate doesn't mean it's not a sellable business. But what it does mean is, if somebody buy it, they might make you work on an earn out to where you will negotiate a final price, and they might only give you 40% up front and require you to earn it out over the next few years. Have you not encountered those type of situations, Vince?
Yeah, it happens all the time, which is what you don't want. Which is why you need to turn your business into a well-oiled machine. It's so important that you do that, because if you don't, i.e. the public adjusting industry, where if a public adjusting company, and there are bigger public adjusting firms that are buying out the smaller ones, that I'm not going to say that doesn't happen, but most public adjusting firms, like you and I know very well, there's really one business model that everybody uses, which is you go out, you sign the claim, you work the claim, and you get paid a contingency, and then you're done. You hire other public adjusters on a contingent, on a commission basis. There's no salary, no anything like that. Go get them, Tiger, and they just sign all the claims. The problem with that is it doesn't really make it very enticing because you as the owner are still the focal point. Even if you hire admins to do a lot of the work, you're still the focal point unless you could actually find a way to productize that service and maybe create some kind of subscription model, which is something that I'm trying to teach now to the public adjusters. It's going to make that company less valuable. And if it's less valuable and it requires more of you as the face of the company, then there's going to be that. There's going to be that seller note. There's going to be those options where the seller has to stay on. And you don't want that. You want to have basically, I mean, I can come up with like a top 5 right now, which is your systems and operations are tight. You have a marketing strategy. You have a way of converting those leads by having a sales team or whatever it is, lead magnets, nurture sequences, converting those leads into actual dollars. But then most importantly, if it is a service, find a way to productize it and then have a subscription model. If you could have those 5 things that I just mentioned, which I just came up with that right now, by the way. How about that, Randolph? Top 5.
Oh, yeah. You've always been a sharp guy.
If you could have those top 5 things in order, that's going to now, you could build on that and you could slowly get away, hire those admins to just, that all that stuff is just all like in a process basically. And you've now basically turned your company into a product itself, which you could ultimately sell to someone for top value. And if you're not needed, you don't got to stay on. So in my opinion, the goal is to not, there's those options, sure, but the goal is to make your business run so well, like a fine-tuned machine, where it's its own product, where you don't have to be there, and then that option is not even available. Someone will come in and just buy you out, and you're done. That's the goal.
Absolutely. And what you're saying is so valuable. A very great book that I read, and I even give this book away. I do a monthly event here in Jacksonville, networking event. You're actually going to be speaking at the next one, June 17th. If you want to see Vince Perri live and in person, come to Jacksonville on June 17th for the liquidity event. But what you just said is so valuable. Service versus product. And when it comes to selling your business, a product is more valuable than a service. But somebody like, well, my company is a service. No, the way you productize your service is you put together this list of offerings, and that's the package. And then to your point, like Vince said, you make a subscription. So now when somebody buys your company, instead of them seeing clients, because I remember growing up, the word client just seemed to have a little bit more gravitas, a little more prestige. When they see you have clients, that requires you. When they see you have customers, that's when you're able to say, all right, not only do I have customers, but they're on these annual subscriptions or these quarterly subscriptions that automatically renew. This is what you're buying. You're not just buying a name on a shingle. You're buying these things that I put together. And to your point about putting that number on the card, when you're able to write down what your walkaway amount is, put it in an envelope, and then come to it later. What if you have a buyer that isn't appreciating that you turned this service into a product? What if they're not appreciating and they still making you work on an earnout? But what if that 40% earnout is your number? All right. So does that mean you walk away from the sale? Right? If they're saying, all right, I'm going to do an earnout with you, and your number was 50 million. And your 40% is 50 million. And the reason why earnouts, they're not terrible, but we don't like them. But the reason why is operating under your current business model, you might hit that threshold just every week. But operating under the new owner's business model, how likely are you going to hit those buyout thresholds? Because I think you should a little bit more on avoiding buyouts. I think that'll be great. Why are buyout agreements not the best thing?
Well, because your whole goal is to sell it and get away and go do something else.
Exactly. Man,
For you to have to stick around, what's the point?
Hold on, Vince, before you get into it, simple is valuable. A lot of people run toward complexity. Mm-hmm. I thought you were gonna take us down a whole, but the point is to get away from it. And you go ahead, keep going. But yeah, you just simplified it and right in one sentence. I mean,
so there's 2 reasons why, as a business broker, it's very similar to what we do with public adjusting, right? You service the client or the selling and the listing of the business, you service the insurance claim, and then you get paid when it's all said and done. I mean, I can't, although it's very nice commissions, I could only survive so long, especially when I'm just starting out, waiting 9 months or a year to get paid. So a couple of the ways that I've productized my business is, and this is a great advice for anybody who's got a service, is, for example, whatever it is that you do, if it's a marketing company, an agency, AC company, I don't know, whatever it is, you take that first part of your business, I like to call it the roadmap, where, let's say, Randolph, you're coming to me because you're thinking about selling your business, okay? Okay, I need to now talk to you for at least about an hour. I need to get all of your financials and put them together. I need to take a look at all your tax returns. I need to literally put it into a calculator and calculate exactly what the EBITDA is, what the seller's discretionary earnings are, and how much the sales price is depending on the multiple in your industry. Then I've got to put together what kind of recurring business do you have? What opportunities are there? Are there opportunities for growth in operations? Are there opportunities for growth in marketing? Are there opportunities for growth in hiring? Whatever it is that may be, I got to put that all down and really make a decision as to how valuable is this company. That's a product. In any other service, you can do the same thing. If you're in a marketing agency, okay, and you bring on clients and you charge them for social media and SEO and lead magnets and nurture sequences and so on and so forth, you initially have to have that conversation to put together a roadmap, to put together a strategy for that person. That's a product. Take whatever it is. I call it the roadmap, usually in the beginning stage, but it could be other stuff as well. And now you charge for that quote unquote service, where initially it would be free because you want to bring them on as a client. You could still charge up front for that, whether it's $500 or $5,000, whatever it is, that beginning roadmap, charge for it. And then from there, come up with the subscription model. I'll give you an example. My AC company that came and replaced my AC. They I don't want to say conned, but I could cancel at any time. But it seemed enticing because ACs are always breaking. Summertime in Florida, it gets hot. For $15 a month, I pay to be a member of the AC company that they can come in and I can call them for any reason. They can come in and they'll do any kind of repair. But they got me locked in every single month, direct deposit, taken out of my account, $15 a month. You multiply that by 12 months, but then you multiply that by 100 clients, 200, 500 clients. That's money that they don't have to chase. That's money that they don't have to look for. That's money literally coming directly as revenue that they can now, what's more important about it, they can now actually predict their cash flow. And by predicting your cash flow, you could actually make better decisions as to where you're going to ultimately spend your money. And that's where it all makes it now, wow, okay, this is a pretty valuable company. I already know I'm going to have this much cash flow and so on and so forth. That makes it valuable. On top of that, you were talking about the owner and the operator. If the operator or the manager that is supposed to be sort of taking place of the owner so that the owner doesn't have to be there, if there's one or if there's not, it doesn't matter too much if the company is still profitable. If it still brings in nice cash flow and there's a good amount of profit that's coming in, well, guess what? The new owner, Randolph, comes in and buys the company. What's the first thing you're going to do? You're going to go on Indeed. You're going to look for landscaping experience, and you're going to hire an operator right off the bat, go through the whole interview process. And if you know that you have enough cash flow because that company was very profitable because of the productized service, because of the recurring revenue, because of the amount of clients that they have, and the length of tenure that the business has been around. Now you could just say, hey, that's fine. We've got a couple strong admins. Great. The owner's been involved. That's fine. He's just exhausted now. We just sold a company, what is it? The water irrigation company. Dude, this guy was like the whole company. But brother, they brought in, it was roughly about $4 to $5 million a year. And his overhead was like nothing. I thought it was a beautiful business. And he was done. Young guy, probably like late 30s, early 40s. He was done. He's like, I'm exhausted. I'm like, why don't you just hire a manager instead of selling your company? He's like, because I'm too much of a control freak. He's like, I know who I am. He's like, I'm done. I'm a top value right now. I'd rather just sell it, start something else. So the buyer is going to go in, and first thing he's going to do, this is a great company, recurring revenue, products all over the place, 5 stars on Google, like everywhere. I'm just going to go on Indeed. Let's find the perfect person to run this son of a bitch.
Wow. For people who want, not just because I know you work closely with the people who are selling, but of course, there are going to be people who want to buy that would love to call you, right? For people who either want to sell or buy a business, how do they get in contact with you, Vince?
I'm easy to find. You know that, Randolph. I love my YouTube show. You go Vince Perri Official on YouTube. Literally just type that in. We've separated all of our content from public adjusting. We have the public adjusting stuff in there, and we've got the Beyond the Claim podcast where I have my guests in studio and virtual as well. And I go solo every Wednesday where I talk stuff about this: valuations of companies, systems, processes, marketing. One of my favorite topics, to be completely honest, is leadership and mindset. I think having the proper mindset when you're an entrepreneur is probably, unfortunately and surprisingly, the most important of all of it, because if you believe in yourself and you believe that you can do it, you will ultimately get the things done that you need to get done. That's what the YouTube show is all about. Instagram is Vince Perri Official. Facebook, Vince Perri. That's the best way. I'm really good with my, I DM. It's always me at face. If someone DMs me on Facebook or Instagram, that's going to be me that's going to be responding. For me, Instagram just has the best DM feature of all the social media outlets. So DM me on Instagram, Vince Perri Official, and I'll be happy to. I'm super passionate about business. That's what I love. I was answering a networking group question about like, what are your hobbies and stuff like that. And it's just like, yeah, business, family, exercise, business, family, and exercise. That's that. I don't do anything more fun. That's what I find fun. That's what I like.
Man. If you find one more E, you can have an acronym, BEEF. That'll be nice.
Only you would think of that, Randolph.
Yeah, I'm a wordsmith. I think key takeaway for people listening that if you are thinking about selling your business, the sooner you contact, the better. Even if it's 2, 3, 5 years from now. Of course, we hope sooner than later. But even if you're thinking about doing it then, you need to talk to somebody now, because there are things that you need to change, things you need to remove, things you need to add to make your business the most valuable as possible. This has been another exciting episode of the Entreprenudist Podcast, the place to hear real entrepreneurs and business owners bear it all. I've been your host, Randolph Love III, and we'll see you on the next one.